Courtney Thomas, and today I want to talk about practice, which is something that we talk about so often in wellness and fitness and health and self-care. And I want to talk about a practice and a way to practice that can truly, truly affect and increase your well-being. So the thing about practice is that, it's necessary, right? Like life is a practice. Everything about it is a practice. And we so often talk about when we want to be, again, increasing our well-being, feeling a bit better, oftentimes we talk about adding a practice, cultivating a practice of insert whatever here. We've referred to yoga as a practice or having a self-care practice. Again, like this is super prevalent. We use the word practice often, and that's for a reason, right? Like a lot of times when you invest in practicing, you do increase your skill in something, increase how you're feeling confident about doing something, increase your capacity for that outcome, right? That does take practice. So, what's funny about this is obviously we only have so much overall capacity for practice. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we struggle to cultivate additional practices, new practices, incorporate them, continue to practice more and more and more. At a certain point, there's like that level of diminishing returns, right? Like you can only practice so many things and get good at so many things, increase your skill at so many things. We only have so much time and energy and space to do that. So for instance, I spent a lot of years, probably too many years, practicing really a lot on how to write for social media. Right? Like that's a very specific thing. If you do this, well, really at all, whether it's in a personal or a professional capacity, you know that there's a certain way to write well for a social media post, right? And I became really aware of this when I stopped doing it. So, really I'm only sharing content on I don't even know that I call it a social media channel, but over on LinkedIn, right? And you can still create an original post, like an organic post. And a few weeks ago, I went to do that and realized, I am no good at this anymore. This is a totally different style of writing that I am not practicing anymore. Essentially, I realized that I got out of practice. And that was kind of a revelation for me. It allowed me to reflect in that moment on the fact that by getting out of practice in one thing, I was able to cultivate other practices of things that I really wanted to create and cultivate, get better at, increase, how I was feeling, increase my skill level, yes, in some tangible things. But it took getting out of practice, the practice of getting out of practice, to see that, to create some space for these other practices that really mattered to me. And that too is really how to begin this practice. Like, spoiler alert, here was the secret. The practice that's going to increase your well-being is getting out of practice at something. Get out of practice at something. It takes that to often really see, again, like what really matters, what's going to, kind of shift where I want to be, what's going to make the most, difference and change in what really matters in my life. So that's kind of a question that we don't always tend to ask, right? Like, do I need to add this practice? Like, does this matter to me? Or is it just another thing to layer on all the other things that I'm already doing? Again, I think that's why, relating it to something like self-care, wellness, again, creating change maybe in your career, in your life, in your relationships, whatever, like new habits, any of this stuff, we tend to just layer it on without saying like, is this a practice that I even want to do? Like, is this something that matters to me? Do I want to create this practice? Do I want to focus on this? Again, like, do you really want to create a practice of morning workouts? Or do you feel better, have more energy, more fuel in your body, more, mental capacity to focus in the afternoon after work? Do you really want to, create this whole bedtime routine, or do you just want to kind of splash your face? You're happy with that, lay down, read for 10 minutes and drift off. Like, does it need to be a whole thing? You get to ask these questions, right? And kind of side note, I love introducing this reflection with yes or no questions, right? Do I really want to do X? Does this practice really matter to me? Do I need to start this practice, incorporate this practice, revisit this practice? Yes or no? Start there. And then you can start to explore the ors, the options, the things that come beyond that initial, like, does this matter to me? But it's really typically only in that space of getting out of practice of something that then you have this ability to open up and look at the rest of it. And then again, you can choose which practices are going to benefit you in the ways that you want to be benefited, right? So again, for me, by letting go of that social media writing practice, guess what? I get to do all kinds of other things. I've cultivated a different morning routine practice. I am definitely practicing connecting really a lot. I'm practicing writing in other ways. I'm doing other things that do feel like they are benefiting my overall well-being without just layering on another practice that like the world tells me that I need to do. Oh, you should have a yoga practice or a meditation practice or a blah. Like, maybe I don't want that. And I reflected on that and saw, hey, yeah, that's true. So, again, a lot of times it seems like self-improvement means adding more practices. But, that like doing more is the best way to go. Like, again, like create all of these things. But I would kind of argue that the opposite might be true. Subtracting practices that don't bolster your personal self-improvement is probably actually going to support it better. Wild, right? I definitely never thought I would be a person who was cool with like getting out of practice at something. Again, that kind of relates to this whole like world societal message thing that is like, oh, you can't be bad at anything, right? But, same could be said for, I'm out of practice at running right now. Big deal. Guess what? That's okay. I'm in practice with other things that feel like a better fit for where I am and where I want to be right now. It's, uncomfortable to consider. I get it. Again, the getting out of practice at something on purpose might be an option, might actually benefit you, might be a good thing. But consider this too. It's going to put you in practice with purpose. So again, we talk about cultivating practices all the time, but maybe we need to start talking a little bit instead about what practices we can abandon. So think about that today. What practice can you get out of on purpose?